Well, hello everyone. I hope you're having a great Tuesday. I hope by faith you're believing that God's going to do great things throughout this entire day. Welcome to today's edition of Take 5. Hey, this week we are breaking down the message that I preached Sunday. That message was entitled Through Faith and Patience. We grabbed that title out of Hebrews chapter 6, verse number 12, that says we should not be lazy, but that we should imitate those who through faith and patience inherit the promises of God. That's the only way we'll get to the next season. That's the only way we'll get to our next purpose. That's the only way we'll get through what we're in right now. It's through faith and patience. Now, we talked about the word through 2 weeks ago, spent a whole week during our devotion time talking about that. Today, I want to talk about the faith part of that phrase. And when you look at the word faith and the subject of faith, there are all kinds of definitions and opinions in the church today. You'll find everybody has a different idea of what it is. But when you rightly divide the scriptures, you'll find that faith may not necessarily be what everybody thinks it is. And this is why we're here to talk about that this week. Hebrews chapter 11 is that great hall of faith of men and women of God who trusted God to the bitter end. And we learned yesterday, we read about two different groups of people. One group saw great events happen, miraculous things happen because of their faith. Another group, not so much. Things were just a little different for them. I'm going to remind you of those two groups real quick. Not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read part of it. This is what the writer says. I don't have time to tell you about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, or the prophets. All of them had great faith. And with that faith, they defeated kingdoms. They did what was right, and God helped them. With their faith, they closed the mouths of lions. They stopped fires. They escaped being killed with swords. The weak were made strong. They became powerful in battle and defeated armies. Even women received loved ones back from the dead. Now, those are the kind of results from faith that most people want to talk about. But the writer goes on and begins to talk about another group of people and says, and others were tortured. What? How does that even factor into faith? Others were tortured. They were laughed at. They were beaten. They were tied up, put in prison, killed with stones, cut in half, killed with swords. The only clothes some of them had were sheepskins or goatskins. They were poor, persecuted, and treated bad. They wandered around in deserts and mountains, living in caves and holes of the ground. And listen to this, and God was pleased with all of them. Both groups. God was pleased with them. Do you see the two different roads, the two different paths that faith can sometimes take? One in the miraculous and one in the victorious, at least in our perspective, victorious. But another road can take you through trial and persecution and offense sometimes. And yet God says that both of these groups, all of the people, had great faith and God was pleased with them. So we ask the question, whose faith's greater? And there's no way to determine that because God Himself said that He commended all of them for their faith. Now, nobody I know of is interested in a faith that leads to pain or struggling or chaos. But the fact is, sometimes faith leads you down that road. Most people want a power in faith that gives you confidence and answers and strength without any fear or anxiety and all. And that's why the message of the name it and claim it and this prosperity gospel, that's why it's become so popular today, because these ideas appeal to our flesh. Let's face it, it sounds good to be successful. It sounds good to always win. It sounds good when every fire and every trial is quenched and stopped. That sounds good to my flesh. And the fact is, I believe God can do all those things. Absolutely. Everything that we read in Hebrews, I believe God can do it. I believe He's able to do exceedingly abundantly, above all, more than we could ask or think. I believe He's able to do it. But I also believe from reading the scriptures that sometimes God takes us down roads that are rough and uncomfortable and downright undesirable, and we need faith to go down those roads. And so we find that faith takes us both ways in life, and there's no way to separate one faith being greater than the other. The outcome lies with God. Our responsibility is to put our faith and trust in Him regardless of the outcome. Now, what I do not believe in, nor do I like, are these false teachings of charlatans today that sell a fake faith that teaches people that all you got to do is pull a few levers and punch a few buttons and God will dance to your tune and do whatever you want to and He will get it done. And the whole mindset behind that definition of faith is that faith becomes a tool that you can use to get what you want. And then if the tool doesn't work, well, guess what? You just didn't have great faith. Because let's face it, if you had enough faith, according to these guys, then you'd always be healed and you'd always be successful and you'd always get the job and you'd never suffer pain or feel grief or anything like that. But if that's the case, you have to ask, then did Paul have great faith? Because that man suffered atrociously. Did the disciples have great faith? Because all of those except John died a martyr's death. You even have to ask, did Jesus have great faith when you look at what He went through? Great faith is not revealed when we get what we want, because it has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with the plan of God and the outcome that He foresees and is written down in the annals of history. Great faith is revealed when you trust God with the outcome, even though it may be contrary to what you're hoping and praying for. Job from the Old Testament, he's one of my heroes there. He contributed everything that happened during his trial to God. He would give the devil credit for nothing. I love that brother. He said in the midst of his trial, though He slay me, talking about God, though He slay me, I will still trust Him. Now, friend, that is great faith. And that's the faith that we need to get a hold of, because faith doesn't always lead us in places that are comfortable. Sometimes faith takes us into places where there is chaos. Hey, the rest of the week we're going to talk about a little woman from the New Testament that we can glean some positions of faith that she had, and we can learn what it's necessary for us to achieve this great faith that the Bible talks about. So I look forward to being with you tomorrow on Wednesday's edition of Take 5. Until then, God bless you. Have a great day. Trust the Lord in all circumstances, the good and the bad. He will never fail you.